How many Trump White House staffers does it take to change a light bulb? We have no idea. That actually might be one of the few things that the most incompetent White House staff in history, led by the most incompetent White House chief of staff in history, can actually do. So I'm going to take a wild guess that it might only take one Trump White House staffer to replace a light bulb. But how many doctors does it take to give Donald Trump his annual physical exam? Hint. It is the largest number of doctors who have ever given a physical to an occupant of the White House. And it might be the largest number of doctors who have ever given anyone in the world a physical exam. 22. Yes, 22. The Washington Post is reporting that Donald Trump set a record with his 22 doctors. Under the headline this week, Trump sees 22 medical specialists appearing to set new bar for presidents. The article includes this comment. "It is an extraordinary number," said Jonathan Reiner, longtime cardiologist for former Vice President Dick Cheney. "What specialties do they represent? Why so many?" I have a question. How many of them are psychiatrists? Because if the answer is 0, then 22 doctors isn't enough. Not for Donald Trump. Dick Cheney, who had more heart surgeries than anyone who's ever served as president or vice president, had fewer doctors than Donald Trump has. Donald Trump's personal physician, whose title in the White House is Physician to the President, is a United States Navy captain. So, like many previous White House physicians, the president is both his patient and his commander-in-chief, which means it's up to Donald Trump to decide when and if his doctor, the Navy captain, is ever going to become a Navy admiral. Captain Sean Barbarella, the White House physician, said that Donald Trump is in, quote, excellent health. He actually used the words excellent health for Donald Trump. In the Washington Post article about Donald Trump's 22 doctors, a White House official is quoted telling this lie. "We have nothing to hide." The Trump White House has something to hide about everything, including Donald Trump's 22 doctors and his health. When you work in Donald Trump's White House and you issue a written report about his annual physical examination, it's actually titled his annual physical examination, and it's no longer annual, it's actually frequent, and you're supposed to reveal in that document all the drugs that the president takes, you refuse to say whether he takes a hair loss drug. But you do include this on page 2 of your 3-page medical report. AI-enhanced electrocardiogram analysis estimated his cardiac age, an established measure of cardiovascular vitality, to be approximately 14 years younger than his chronological age. I ran that line by a cardiologist tonight, and his response was, quote, such bullcrap. And I cleaned that up a bit. The White House physician is claiming that AI estimates Donald Trump's cardiac age is 65 years old, while he's now 79 years old. So Donald Trump's White House physician, who must obey all orders given to him by Donald Trump, is saying that this guy's cardiac age is 14 years younger than his chronological age of 79. We know how much Donald Trump really, really hates being old. And so Donald Trump's physician is trying to tell you to just think of him as being a 65-year-old guy. Okay. Here's a 65-year-old guy. That's George Clooney playing softball in Central Park. Let's see Donald Trump try that. Now, of course, it's unfair to compare any of us mere mortals to George Clooney, but The fact is that the photograph of Donald Trump on the screen right now, besides George Clooney, was taken 14 years ago when Donald Trump was 65, the same age as George Clooney in that photograph. So no, Donald, no one who doesn't work under orders from you in the White House is ever going to think of you as being the same age as George Clooney.
He's dying. That's why he had 22 doctors examine him at his latest annual physical. I'm a physical therapist with a doctorate in my field and 14 years experience working in home health care, treating geriatric patients with multiple serious, incurable chronic diseases like dementia, heart failure, history of stroke, heart attack, all sorts of fun shit. So the Washington Post is reporting the president had 22 different medical specialists assess him as part of his latest checkup. That's because he's really fucking sick. 22 breaks his own record of 14 from last year. Had to go and find 8 more doctors to try and figure this shit out. George Bush I saw 5 specialists in a 1989 checkup. George Bush II saw 12 at his first checkup as president. And the kicker, Joe Biden saw 20 during his last year in office. Trump probably thinks that he's doing better than Biden because he saw more doctors. I fucking guarantee you. That's what happens when you have a malignant narcissist who also has frontotemporal dementia. They just think number go up is better. The best part about this is it's right fucking there in the report that Dr. Sean Barbarella published for all the world to see. The entire report is basically bullshit. I just cannot understand why Barbarella would feel the need to mention this number.
And given how well you know him and how he responds to adversity, what does he do with this situation?
I honestly don't think he has the marbles to do anything. I think it's happening to him. And you know, you just look at a day like today where he goes from one extreme to the other about Iran and whether he's going to bomb it or not. And then he tells the world he is. Why in the world would you do that? And, you know, now he's got the Epstein drama that was created by Maggie Haberman and her colleague. I just think that he is lost. And really doesn't have a sense, not that he was so great about this at any time over the last 10 years, but I think he is without any instincts other than self-preservation in the immediate moment. And that self-preservation in the immediate moment means he sets himself up for lots of terrible things going forward.
When you see this Epstein story drop, and they're still so concerned about that, and the response is hunt the leakers. As I mentioned, and it bears underscoring, this isn't a response that says they made this up, fake news, it's not true. It's more like, oh no, someone who works here told the truth about this, and all he wants to do is publicly admit that he wants to, quote, hunt them down.
Yeah, I mean, that's his way, is to attack, as he said in the movie. And so, you know, the reality has no meaning to him. Reality is what he makes it in that moment. And in some measure, he believes it. The problem for him right now is most people don't.
Right. And that gap, which we saw in gaffes, it used to be sometimes he would say things and elites or DC would recoil, but he would find a pocket of support out in the country. Maybe we didn't like it, but he would find it. When he says, I love the inflation going up, which I just reported in the Times has an article that's literally wiped out what little hourly gains people had. That's real world. I don't think anyone agrees with him that they love that.
No, I think they don't. And actually, that's part of what we're doing in this assessment. You know, in 2014, I did an article for the New York Times called Why You Hate Work. And it really assessed what's the experience people are having at work. We're redoing that now. That's what you were mentioning. And it strikes me that we are at, probably is going to turn out, that the climate Trump is creating is making the experience of people, what people hate most is uncertainty. That's what makes them the most anxious. And the climate of uncertainty trickles down. He's, from my perspective, the chief ed Trump, for better or for worse, is the chief energy officer, and the energy is bad. And so the experience people are having, we want to
Hundreds of thousands. The exact number, which Donald Trump should know, because it is possible that one of the men in that number took Donald Trump's place at his draft board in New York City when Donald Trump managed to avoid military service. The exact number of American war dead in Vietnam was 58,220. Now, I have repeated that on this program after Donald Trump has gotten it wrong, and not one of those lying incompetents in the Trump White House has been able to put that number in front of that man so that he can at least have the decency to use the correct number, to honor each one of the people represented in that number. But that Trump White House is so poisonously stupid, every single one of them, that they're going to let that buffoon they work for continue to go out there and lie about our Vietnam War dead. And he's so relentlessly ignorant, we don't even know if he's lying, because Donald Trump just might have absolutely no idea and has never had any idea how many Americans were killed in Vietnam. And he does not care. That's for sure. He does not care. He thinks it's hundreds of thousands. That is Donald Trump's desperation on display, the desperation.
Questions about Donald Trump's age and health are once again becoming part of the political conversation. In recent months, critics have pointed to the several public appearances and comments by Trump that they believe raise concerns about his physical and mental condition. Some observers have noted moments where Trump appeared focused on legacy, how history will remember him, and the long-term impact of his presidency. Those comments have fueled renewed debate about whether age and health should play a larger role in evaluating politics leaders, especially as major decisions involving foreign policy and national security continues to dominate headlines, adding to the discussion are statements from former associates and critics who argue that Trump has changed significantly over the years. Some claim that his communication style, public behavior, and decision-making appear different from what they observed in previous decades. Supporters, however, reject those criticisms and point to Trump's active campaign schedule, public appearances, and continued influence within the Republican Party as evidence that he remains fully capable of leading. The debate highlights a broader issue facing American politics as leaders remain in public office later in life. Questions about age, fitness, and long-term health are becoming increasingly common topics of discussion. Whether voters view these concerns as significant or simply political attacks remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. Discussions about Donald Trump's future, his legacy, and his ability to lead are likely to remain a major part of the political conversation moving forward.